This is St. Louis on the Air from St. Louis Public Radio. I'm Elaine Cha. Later in the hour, we'll run through STLPR favorites from the archives of our monthly new music roundups featuring tracks by artists who call St. Louis home. We'll also get a recap of Foxing's final live performances in STL. But first, after 14 years of recording and performing their unique brand of emo indie rock, the St. Louis-based and internationally acclaimed band Foxing is taking an indefinite hiatus. This comes 1 year after the release of their self-titled album, which features their single, Hell 99. On social media, the band shared a note to their fans. It reads in part, "We've decided to take a hiatus from playing shows, writing, or doing anything as Foxing. It feels really scary to say that, but it has become clear to us that in our pursuit of our dreams and making the most honest and genuine art we can, our relationship with music, each other, and our sense of self without the band has eroded. We have decided to prioritize these things and need to step away from the band to do so." Soon after the announcement, Foxing released the dates for their final shows in Chicago and St. Louis. Fans sold out those initial dates in mere minutes, which led the band to add a second St. Louis show at the pageant. That show sold out in a day. The last show for Foxing was held at the pageant on December 6th. Fans came from across the country to hear the band before they started their break.
I traveled about 2 hours and everything to see them.
I'm from St. Louis.
I'm from Minnesota. I'm heading to Colorado where I live now, so not super on my way.
I flew in from Philadelphia. I just landed like a couple hours ago.
As the queue grew outside the venue and in the merch line, fans shared which of Foxing's works means the most to them.
I honestly only got into them around 2021, whenever they released Draw Down the Moon.
Never gonna stop loving you. If I could, I would have done it by now.
It was Near My God, and I remember being impressed by the eclecticness of it.
'Cause I sold my soul to be a married.
The Albatross is absolutely a pinnacle Midwest emo album.
She says you always smell like cigarettes, and there's always whiskey on your breath.
Weeks before the band hit the stage for the last time for the foreseeable future, STLPR General Assignment and arts reporter Chad Davis sat down with Eric Hudson, guitarist and background vocalist for Foxing. They discussed the band's career, its fans, and what this hiatus means. Chad started the conversation by asking Eric where he was mentally leading up to Foxing's final shows.
I think my head's been all over the place with it. I think people like to hear positive things, but to be honest, I've been feeling very sad about it. And I guess the positive in it is that because I feel so sad, that means that there was a lot of love in it that has, come from it, and come from all this time that we've put into it. I think especially when in rehearsals and stuff, which I just came from a rehearsal, it almost feels like a movie is happening in my head where you have a flashback and that's just happening constantly. And some of them are very happy and just very high highs, and some are low lows. And I think, it just makes me very, very, very emotional. I guess the thing I end up thinking about walking away from the rehearsals is just kind of like, who I was when it started and who I am now, because in some ways it feels like I remember when, I joined the band, and it's almost like I fell asleep or I blacked out when I was like 20, and now I'm waking up and I'm 33, and it doesn't feel like any of it happened.
Well, you talk about like the 10 years or roughly 10 years since you joined the band and where you are now. So as a person, as an artist, how have you changed over these past, I guess, almost a decade, really?
I think over the course of, this band, I think the biggest way in which I've changed as an artist is that I have a lot more confidence in myself. My sort of instincts as an artist, like, I feel more validated and strong about those convictions and about, what, if I have a feeling or if I'm hearing something, I'm not second guessing it. I'm just doing it because I've been doing that in the band and it's worked out well, I guess personally the way that the band has affected me is, I think getting to travel and meet so many different people and also meet many of my heroes that I grew up idolizing, and I think having that opportunity has changed my perspective quite a bit on dreams and the way that, what success is and what it isn't.
5 albums that you all have produced. When you think about these albums, is there one that stands out to you the most, that you're most proud of?
I feel like probably most artists will always say this, and I'm not just saying it. I feel like our latest album.
I was like, I know the answer is going to be then.
It's not like, I'm aware that like our most popular album is probably our first album.
Sure.
And
the Albatross?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then after that, it might be our third album. But in terms of like being proud, I am proud because I think everyone represents something that we overcame or something we were dealing with that we had to overcome or just where I was in my life. For me, it was the culmination of like learning how to produce music and engineer music and mix music. We didn't have anyone producing us. We didn't have anyone recording us. We didn't have, it was all ourselves doing everything.
Well, obviously in September, that's when you all announced the hiatus for the group. So, as much as you're able to share, talk a little bit about just kind of, what led to that, or kind of, how the group decided to, or why the group decided to go on a hiatus and why now is the time.
Yeah. Well, I certainly don't want to speak for everybody. I think it's many reasons. I don't know, like maybe there's all these things and we're all going on different paths and we have all these different desires and I think the reality is like the band shouldn't continue creatively if we're going to have to make sacrifices for that, for those things, because it inherently will just affect the band creatively. And, we all know we're never going to be a massive band. We're not going to be U2 or anything like that. And so the thing I think we're bringing to the table is like integrity and earnesty. And those are very important to us because I think that is missing a lot in the modern world. And if any of those things have to be compromised, then we think it's probably better to just walk away from it until we can come back to it feeling fresh and feeling like we can do right by the mission statement of the band. Yeah.
No, I think that makes sense. And, even if you all aren't going to be as big as U2, of course, you all have, amassed like a strong fan base. And even here in St. Louis, I mean, you all had one show at the pageant and then that sold out. Or was it the pageant or was it initially Del Mar Hall?
So it was initially Del Mar Hall. Then
okay.
It sold out quickly. And
right.
then, so we're like, oh, we'll add a second night at Del Mar Hall. And then that sold out very quickly. So then we upped the last show to the pageant, and then that sold out.
Did that even surprise you all? I mean, obviously you're from St. Louis, you have a huge fan base here, but did that shock you all to have to go all the way to the pageant for that?
Yes, that shocked me. I hope this doesn't sound egotistical, but I did think, I was like, well, we've sold out Del Mar Hall before. I think this will probably sell out. You know what I mean? Like, probably,
Sure.
You know what I mean? And then we added the second night, and I was like, okay, well, you know, I could see a world where, like, this, you know, it is 2 nights. Like, I don't, you know, it might not sell out. And, like, that's fine. You know what I mean? And no, that sold out immediately as well. And so then it was, like, almost a little stressful because then it was like, well, I guess we could up it to the pageant, but, like, there's no way, like, that's going to go. Like, that's, like, 2,300 people, and we've played the pageant before, but, like, we only, like, sold, like, half of it, and that, like, I felt like we did really well just to do that. You know what I mean? Sometimes internally we feel like, you know, I know we have fans, and I love those people, and I appreciate their support a lot, but we don't have, like, a lot of fans. You know what I mean? Like, we don't have, like, you know, people don't care, like, that much. You know what I mean? And I think that was the moment where, like, it felt a lot more real, and it just hit me really hard because I've always, you know, when I was a child and seeing shows at the pageant and getting to sell it out is, I think, just a really crazy thing, and it's legitimately not something I thought we would do. It really means a lot to me. It is very bittersweet because it's coming seemingly at the end, and that created its own complicated feeling, but I don't know. I really can't say enough about how much it means, and no, I was not expecting it. It was a lot.
That was Eric Hudson, guitarist and background vocalist for Foxing, in conversation with STLPR's Chad Davis. They talked about Hudson's experience performing and recording with Foxing. The band is on an indefinite hiatus after 14 years together. We need to take a quick break. Coming up, a recap of Foxing's final shows in St. Louis at the pageant and Del Mar Hall. This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio. Welcome back. The post-hardcore emo band Foxing is officially on a recording and performing hiatus. Connor Murphy, John Helwig, Brett Torrance, and Eric Hudson spent their final shows showing love to each other, former Foxing bandmates, friends, family, and fans. Joining me in studio to recap Foxing's final for now shows in St. Louis before their indefinite group pause is Chad Davis, journal assignment and arts reporter for St. Louis Public Radio. Chad, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
And we're also joined by STLPR's visuals editor, Brian Munoz. Brian, seen a lot of you lately.
Yeah, nice to see you, Elaine.
Now, I described Foxing's general music genre in the intro as post-hardcore and emo. Emo being short for emotional. And I hear that emotions were very much felt and expressed at the band's pre-hiatus shows on December 5th and 6th. Now, you both went to those shows, each of which was sold out. So, Brian, you went to the one on December 5th at Del Mar Hall. What vibes did you pick up from fans outside and inside the venue?
People were excited to see Foxing perform, and it was just really nostalgic. A lot of these folks were talking about the first times that they heard the band, and they just were sad that, you know, they were going on this hiatus for now, but overall excited to be able to share space with one another.
Were there any moments from the shows that each of you went to that you found like most memorable or maybe like definitively Foxing as a whole, Chad?
So I really like their last album, probably like that's the album that stands out the most to me, and it's just like very chaotic and energetic. And so what was kind of cool at the seeing the last show was just them seeing or playing that music and then also just seeing the crowd like just mosh to it or crowd surf to it. There's actually one part that was interesting, like during the encore, there was a lot of crowd surfing. The guards were there and just kind of like let them crowd surf and just like escorted them out afterwards, which didn't look like they kicked them out or anything. They just let them all just have like a lot of fun. So to me, it was just cool to see like, okay, this is their last show, and just seeing the audience react to that energy. And the staff just, welcome all of that felt great to see.
Mm-hmm. And that last album that you just mentioned was self-titled, Foxing, released in 2024. As a fan of Foxing's music, Chad, for some time, and you shared one of their songs on a past iteration of our new music roundup. What
Yes.
songs were you excited to hear performed? And was there one that you were surprised that they performed at all?
So the last time I saw them was prior to the self-titled album. So I was glad that I got to see Hell 99 or Greyhound perform during the actual set, which I hadn't seen before just because I hadn't seen them since 2022. So it was great to hear some of those records performed. At least We Found the Floor is a song from their, I want to say, fourth album or their 2021 album that I really, really like. So it was great to kind of see that as like one of the encore songs that they did. It was a nice duet between Eric Hudson and Connor Murphy. And so I think that was an emotional, I felt a little emotional listening to that.
Mm-hmm. And, we've been hearing from fans leading up to and after Foxing's Last for Now shows. And I want to emphasize that the guy said this is a hiatus, and we're keeping up hope that they're going to be back together and performing music again soon. WonderGuard 108 shared that they and their wife drove 8 hours from Michigan to see their last Foxing show. They said, "The first song I heard of Foxing's was Grand Paradise. It came up on my Discover Weekly playlist, and I broke down crying in a random bank parking lot. The second song of theirs I heard was Speak with the Dead. Same story. I broke down crying in that same parking lot of that same bank. That was when I finally recognized the band name, and from there I went on to listen to and love their entire discography. I attended the December 6th show at the pageant. I'd never heard Speak with the Dead live before. When they started playing it at the end of their set, I burst into tears in the pit. It was a very meaningful moment for me. Thank you, Foxing." And then on Reddit, user Mizumania from St. Louis shared, "Foxing is a one-of-a-kind band, and being able to claim them as hometown heroes was very special. The thing I'll miss most about Foxing is having some of the most beautiful humans actively representing our city in a positive manner across the world." So Chad, you've reported on Foxing in the past, and you spoke with the fans outside the pageant at that final show, and with guitarist, vocalist Eric Hudson here in studio. Were there any anecdotes that were shared with you in those conversations, that didn't make it into your final edit that really stick with you?
Yeah. So one of the engineers of Foxing, Ryan Wasaba, he actually was there too. And so he was just talking about how he just loves the aspect of being, one of the things he loves the most about Foxing and these shows is just being in this communal environment. And so he was just very, very pleased to just be there with, what he considered family. And yeah.
Brian, when you were in the photo pit, what expressions or moments did you witness and capture on stage and in the crowd that you can still see vividly in your mind's eye right now?
Yeah. I think some of the things that stand out to me from photographing this show and, seeing the fans just belting out the lyrics of these songs, throwing their hands in the air, and Connor just fully immersed in the performance and really feeding off of that audience excitement. And, one of the photos that I really enjoyed that I got was Eric chewing on his necklace while he was playing, and I could tell he was really concentrated. But I think it was just an incredible experience, and I'm working my way through their discography now. I wish I would have known about them a little earlier, but of course, that's why we do things like this.
Mm-hmm. A through line in what STL fans of Foxing shared about their love of the group is an appreciation of how Foxing represented St. Louis, and we heard a little bit of that in that Reddit poster. And producer Maya Norfleet was also at that final pre-hiatus Foxing show at the pageant, and she caught up with Jonathan Rahul, who's a music blogger and Foxing fan. And he said that when he first heard of Foxing, he was surprised to learn that they're from St. Louis, and he shared why.
St. Louis had some great local bands that were in the alternative or like rock genres, but especially like indie and emo and punk and that kind of thing. And I think right around when I graduated high school, a lot of them like felt like they had like a lot of acclaim in like the scene and in the city, but like beyond that, they weren't getting much attention. And so for Foxing then to come out and like start playing nationwide tours and get on bills with like other nationwide popular indie punk bands and that kind of thing, that was just really cool for me to see it.
Is there anything that you feel like is uniquely St. Louis about Foxing's sound?
Man, this is gonna sound maybe a little bit brash, but there's a IDGAF quality to it, especially in their later years when they became more like self-sufficient and a straight up independent artist, not having to rely on label support and that kind of thing, where they will pull on all of their influences, whether it's like heavier stuff, whether it's like softer stuff, to like put out the music that they want to like make. And like I think there's something about that with like St. Louisans. We are very stubborn, we're very obstinate, but we know what we think is good and we know what we think is right, and we stick to it.
And that was Jonathan Rahul, music blogger and Foxing fan, in conversation with producer Maya Norfleet at the pageant before Foxing's final for now show as they start their hiatus. Jonathan Rahul shared that St. Louis and Foxing has an IDGAF, or I don't give an F, approach to things. And both of you were nodding as you were hearing that. How do you think Foxing, their music, their careers, their relationship with fans, reflects St. Louis's music and the region's overall identity? Brian?
I would have to agree with the gentleman that just spoke. I think St. Louis, we see ourselves as the underdogs. Those, when people think we're down and out for the count, we find a way to persevere. And I think you've seen those similar qualities in Foxing throughout the time they've been performing, and really want to emphasize that quality of being able to really lean into some of the heavier, rock, punk kind of the music thematically, but also really being open to having that really kind of almost ethereal, softer kind of a performance. And I think in the last show you saw both, sides of the coin, and I thought that was really beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Chad?
Yeah, there definitely is a level of freedom that I think that they've had over the last several releases, where they're able to just kind of do whatever it is that they want.
Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting to see what it's like when, not if, but when they come back. Chad Davis is a general assignment and arts reporter at St. Louis Public Radio, and Brian Munoz is STLPR's visuals editor. Thank you both for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
This segment was produced by Chad Davis and Maya Norfleet, with editing and engineering by Maya Norfleet.
This podcast was mixed and edited by Aaron Dorr.
Our executive producer is Alex Hoyer.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations, and leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thank you.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.